Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's October 23rd, and this will be our chart lesson for today. Actually, it's October 22nd. I'm sorry. But this is our chart lesson for the day. This is going to wrap it up for the week. No chart lessons on Fridays. Um, it looked like it was going to be a range day today early on. We bounced a little high here, and so at that point, I'd be looking for at least a measured leg up. Of course, you want to still respect the overnight highs when you get there until prove they're not out. And you can see we looked like we were going to reverse here, but we bounced off the midline, went higher, and I mean, really, we got this channel confirmed here. You just didn't really know exactly where the highs was. I placed it off this high here. It looks correct, and we looks like we got an overshoot here. It could be that it's a little higher, but the midline seems to be fitting relatively nicely where I have it. So I believe that to be correct with this being an overshoot. And on this one, we never had a break in a new low either. We just had an overshoot. When you get an overshoot, sometimes that you don't get a break in a new low, especially on rain when it happens at strong support or strong resistance range type days. So, but the other way I would have measured this is I would have looked at this leg and started measure leg from here, and you can see that got you real close to the high for 2 o'clock. We continued on up on this range, but that's a couple of ways I would look at try to find your targets today. So um, again, I'm a little late getting this done today. I've had some personal stuff I've had to take care of this last 2 afternoons. So um, I hate I'm doing this so late. I want to try to watch the debate tonight, so I'm going to try to get through this. It's not a lot of trades today, so it shouldn't take too long. I'll try to get through this pretty quickly, get it uploaded, and I'm going to get out of here. So hope you had a good trading day. Hope it's been a good week for you. Um, we had one day in it was pretty tough. I can't remember what day that was. Maybe it was Monday. I can't remember. But anyway, let me back out here. You see the big picture here. And you can see there's a trend up during the overnight, a trend down, and then just another trend up. And I mean, these were fairly easy to find. Just draw it off the first couple of swings of the low or the high as I teach you how to do it. So um, they were not very difficult to find, really. So anyway, let's back out here and talk about the trades. Uh, 7 o'clock came right in this. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was. You had to just kind of sit here a minute. Came right in this little congestion here, little range basically, and we're just working back and forth. But you don't want to go short here. You only want to take a long. And notice you have two legs back to the trend line right here with a nice bullish bar, and you had a failed break higher here, and now you got a failed break lower. There's plenty of room to scalp out. That's where you want to go long. Somebody asked me about this trade yesterday. It's very similar. They said, "Why?" They didn't understand why I went long there, but it was almost the same thing. It was a little range going sideways, and I was basically just playing the range, and that's what I'm playing here. Generally, you don't care much about second entries when prices are in a tight range like this. But if you get a second entry and you can clearly see there's two legs back to the trend line here, and it gives you a nice bullish bar with plenty of room to scalp out before you get back to the highs. So I like going long right there. Um, it ends up working back to the trend line once more. I did not mark this one. It is a failed second entry short. The signal bar is kind of iffy. You could argue for it to be green. Um, I'll be honest. When I was watching it in real time, I liked that setup, but there's some, it's at that key entry point. We've already confirmed it, and we're bouncing off of it again. The problem is it was going a little sideways here, but that's kind of the middle of the range. So again, you're really just getting another chance to go long at the lows at the key entry point as well, which is this trend line. So the problem is the signal bar is not perfect. So it's a little iffy. But if you took it, I wouldn't have any problem with that trade. So we run on up. We get stuck in this tight congestion here. And people, we talk about congestion a lot. You're better to stay out of it. If you understand why there's congestion, um, and what prices are doing, and here it's pretty easy to understand. We've run into resistance, and the buying is drying up, and prices are going to be coming back to the EMA soon. It doesn't mean prices can't break higher and trap you, but that's kind of what happened here. Prices broke higher and made a little trap, then turned down, and they're headed back to the trend line. And so I don't think you want to go short yet because this is a pretty strong trend, but that's why there's congestion there. And you can see there's a triple test right there. We made the high, we tested it once, we tested it twice, it broke higher, it runs down, it's an engulfing bar, but it's congestion. It's a little range, so it could break lower and turn higher again. So that's the only problem. That's the reason I didn't mark it. I don't think you want to go short yet, but it's pretty understandable why we have congestion there, because prices are wanting to come back, and they're just not enough steam to get through there. We actually, you can see we try several more times and don't get through there. But you can't go short until this trend channel plays out. So anyway, we come back to the trend line. You make a high or low. This looks a little congestive, but prices were coming back to test. Notice this breakout right across here. Prices they went through here and they never really came back and tested these highs. If you move this line up, you can see that right across there. And that's what prices are doing here. They come back, they test them once, they test them twice. You got a little trend working down. But you get a close outside, you try to make a new low, and it bounces off the trend line. And again, that's congestion, but you can understand why, because prices are trying to go lower, and they can't because of all the support. You got this support right here, you've got the trend line. So if we break higher, that's technically, I treat this like a double top, and so that's really a second entry long. It's not a clear second, 2 legs down, but it's still a second entry. You can see we got the next leg right here. But if we break higher at that key entry point right there, we're probably going higher. And you can see that we run right back up to the high side, then we come back down to the low side again. And again, you got a first entry and a second entry. And this actually breaks lower, turns and goes back out the other side in the engulfing bar. I like going long one tick above that bar and having it there, so if it does break through there, you're trapped into the trade, or you're triggered into the trade, and off it goes to the high side again. So this is the first break outside this trend channel working up, so we're going to probably try to make a new high. And there's something else to look at here as well. Notice that there's 2 legs back in this leg, but that's the second leg of a 2-legged correction. So you've got a you've got a test of 2s there in 2 ways. You got 1 leg down, correction, and then another leg down with 2 legs in that leg. And so there's a lot of reasons to like going long right there, plus of that support. Runs up, and you can tell now we're just kind of stuck in a range. It comes back down, not a very good signal bar. It's making a lower low, then it makes a lower high, then another lower low. So now you're making lower lows and lower highs. And so you got to be real careful about going long here, but you don't want to go short yet either. So this is one of those areas where it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on. It looks like it's probably going to be a range day, and we're going to turn over here, but just wait until you get a setup. And then finally you trade out of this range. You make yet another, it's another lower high, or another move back to the trend line. Then you make the lower high here, breaks higher and fails, instantly turns down, and you really have the trend line confirmed here, but I wouldn't go short yet. And so there's clues we're going lower here, even though we're in this range. Notice we make a lower high here than the last one. Then you make another lower high, a lower low lower than that one, then a lower high again, then another low lower than that one, lower high, lower low. This makes a little higher high. It looks like maybe we're going to get back in the range, but you can't buy into that trend line. And I guarantee you a bunch of people got fooled and trapped there. And so when it breaks higher and fails instantly against that trend line and turns down, that's where you want to go short. There's going to be a lot of trap traders. Plus, there's going to be a lot of longs up here that are going to have to exit and look at it go. And you don't have to catch but 1 one or two trades like this, especially if you're trading runners. Um, Coming off this highs, if this is a trading range, you might try to catch a runner in here on this move out of this trading range. And look at it go. We run down and we keep turning down at the midline and the EMA. I marked this trade. It's a little aggressive, but notice how many times we're turning down here at the EMA trend line. And this is a second entry short. It's a first entry and it breaks higher, second entry. But it's, again, it breaks higher and it's a little bit of a trap. And it is off that EMA where we're turning down multiple times. I'm not crazy about the trade, but there's some reasons to say, hey, I may take it, because it was unclear here if this was an overshoot. You'd probably want to play it, but you can see the midlines coming into play there. So I'm pretty sure it's an overshoot, and that's another problem. But the market's pretty weak here, and you can clearly see it playing off that. And if you're going to play the midline and the EMA are what I call minor key entry points, you want to see a lot of play off of them before you trade them. And you can clearly see we've turned down here multiple times. So you may take that trade. And then you get another two legs back to the midline and EMA and another bearish bar, and we're still going lower, and we're overshooting again here as well. So you got to be careful, but we're not quite. You can see the overnight lows, and if you run that line across there, you might have even moved them up here, but we're not quite there yet. We're definitely not down here to where I would have probably had the overnight lows marked. So there's still a little room there. So if you want to be a little aggressive, you might take that trade. It's definitely a little aggressive. And it actually breaks higher again and tries to go lower again. But now you're not getting much room. You're not leaving yourself much room. I still think it would have worked, but it's not a very good signal bar. So you don't want to take it regardless. And then, of course, it finally bounces, and as tempting as it is to go long, there's a little triple test there. That bar it broke lower and turned and went out the other side, but you're still below that EMA and that midline, and it's been acting as strong resistance. So, and you can see your risk there is almost $300. So you just can't go long there, and it's a shame because it's a great move, but you can't risk it. But look, quickly you come back, you get a first entry and then a second entry, and that's a failed second entry short. I like going long. It looks a little congested, but at that point, if you put it to the far right hand side, it doesn't really look that congestive because this bar goes higher and this bar makes a little higher low, and you can see that's a relatively bullish bar. Even though it doesn't have much of a body, it's still a bullish bar, and that's still a really bearish bar, even though it doesn't have much of a body. So it does look a little congestive, but you get a little failed second entry short. So I like going long there. You could argue that's real close to the top third. I think it's probably still in the top third of that bar, but because it's a failed second entry short, we're probably going to go higher. You can see it actually comes back again, but you wouldn't have got stopped out, and it continues higher. And now it's kind of hard to know what's going. You stay out of that. There's a little channel working up, but just stay out of it. This turns out to be a little spike in channel, but that's definitely hard to know what's going on in here. Then you run back, and you could have looked at this as a double top, and so that makes this a second entry here. But the fact that we push back through the EMA, and you wouldn't have really had this midline here yet, you might have drawn this, but you wouldn't know where to drag it up. You probably would have had it right there, and it just doesn't, you got no midline there. So, and you really don't know if it's a trend line yet. So it's really hard to know what's going on there. So I don't think you want to enter there either. And again, it takes off. But now you've got a break of this one and two legs up, and you've got a break of this one and a leg up. And these are the highs where we turned down last time, so we're resistant. So we turn down, wait on the lower high. It's not a very good signal bar. Then it makes that little trap. It tries to go higher, turns back down. If it breaks lower there, you can at least ride it back to the EMA. And we're probably going to come, at this point, you're thinking maybe range day, and you're thinking we may be going to go all the way to the other side. So I like going short right there. That's a failed second entry long too. First entry, then you get a pullback right there when it breaks higher and it fails. It doesn't look like it. I mean, it does kind of move down quickly and then it just kind of goes sideways. It doesn't look like it fooled a whole lot of people, but I still like the entry because, I mean, generally you don't know the feedback until you see it. So, and generally that's going to trap people. And it ends up moving on down, and then you get a first entry, second entry. You do get a break of the trend line now, but that's still a nice signal bar. It's a pretty big one again. $225, that's a little more reasonable. And again, this could be a range day and you're expecting prices to go lower, but it's no doubt that's a confirmed trend line, and we're probably going to try to make a new low here, and that's what happens. That turns out to be a pretty good move down. I don't think you want to go short here. You're just kind of working sideways. And when it drops down here, it does confirm a trend line right there, but it's not a very good setup. You run up, and the next thing you know, you're going short again. There's another little trap there, but it looks, it's just, you've already had your break in a new low, and you got this trend line, and it's right into it. So I'd just wait and see. You may see a little trap here. And technically, there's a second entry right there, and that's a very small bar, very low risk. But look, there's 3 bars stacked up there. This one has no body. This one only has 5 ticks in it, which is a really small bar. And all they did was they entice you to jump in there, and then it breaks lower and fails on you. So you really want to wait on a higher low here. And you finally get, you can see you still really close at the trend line, and then finally you get a higher low right here, and that would be the place to enter. And you actually get a reversal here, but it's not a good one because it doesn't even come back to the trend line. Actually, it's possible that I have this. This should be a little steeper maybe. That's probably the way it should have been drawn, but even then you still don't quite get to it, and then you get the break a couple legs up and it's reversing again. It's a reversal, and it does look like this trend channel is in play, so you may go long there, but it's aggressive, and you definitely don't want to enter here, even though it turns out to be a nice trade. And it does look a little similar to this right here. So it's almost a repeat pattern, but I still wouldn't take it. I mean, that's just straight sideways, and you got a couple of bars with no bodies in there. You run up, and then we're working back. You get this little range right here at the EMA, and it breaks lower. You do get a higher low here, but it's real tempting to enter there, and you could argue for that to be a higher low. You could probably say, hey, that one should be green. I would wait. And here you get a true reversal. Comes back to the EMA. That's what a good reversal looks like. It pushes through, comes back, and tests the EMA. You get a nice bullish bar, and off it goes. And you got a little double bottom here, but it's just a first entry. You're not quite back to the EMA. You're not back to the highs yet, which it's kind of hard unless you're judging it by the midline. It's kind of hard to know where the upper side is. I believe it's pretty obvious where it is at this point. It's off of that high, and you can see the midline working well up through there. So I believe it's correct, but higher low, you're running up, and I just don't think you want to enter right there, even though it's a little double bottom and a nice signal bar. It's just a first entry. Of course, it's the first break of this channel, though, so it is a nice signal bar. And the other thing you got to think about too, though, is where the highs are. And you can tell we're way above the highs here that we were really, this is where most of your resistance was, but there's some resistance here from the previous day, and we're pushing into that. So when you run out of support for the current day, you have to switch over to the previous day, and so that puts you at that high as I was just showing you. Although I probably wouldn't worry so much about that. I'd be more apt to say, hey, we may be going to this trend channel. So again, that's one you could argue. I guess that's where I'm going to saying you could make that one green. Then we run up, we get a lower shoot, we make a lower high, then you make a failed second entry long, but everything's above the EMA. Let me back out here because I want to explain this one. It does confirm the trend line, but everything's above the EMA. It's just kind of risky, but when it breaks higher again and turns down, if it breaks lower here, we're probably going to work on lower. So you may take that one. Again, it's a little aggressive. I marked it green, but that's a good sign. When you try to go high 1, 2, 3 times and it fails, and then fourth, and you can see after the fourth one, people just kind of gave up on going long, and everything's going down now. So, and that took us in the 2 o'clock hour. So anyway, I was able to get through that one in 21 minutes. I felt like I rushed on it, but I still think we were able to explain most of them fairly well. It's the aggressive ones I added, and I didn't add them the first time through. Sometimes I like to, as I'm working through the chart the second time, I like to think about them again and decide if I want to put them on there or not. But anyway, that's what I saw today. I'm not going to beat around the bush because I want to get out of here and go watch the debate tonight. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. No chart lesson tomorrow, no chart lessons on Fridays. We'll be back to do it Monday. I will remind everybody that I have my final surgery for my eye on next Tuesday, so I definitely will not be trading Tuesday. I'll try to remind everybody Monday about it just in case you forget, but I'll be out Monday. I won't trade because I have to go in early that morning, and so we'll do our thing Monday. I'll be off Tuesday. I'll probably be back Wednesday. I'm trying to remember how quickly I came back last time. Seemed like I was pretty good in a day or so. So we'll see how it works out, but definitely I'll be out Tuesday, and we'll just have to play Wednesday by ear. And so if you don't hear from me Wednesday, you'll know why. But I'm going to wrap it up today so I can get on out here. I can get this processed and get it uploaded. But anyway, I'm done for today. We'll be back again to do it Monday. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.